All right, I just have one more shape to draw. It's a little kidney bean shape. Wouldn't it be wonderful if that was something in the shape options? Like a rounded rectangle. That used to be a really common one, but it's not there. So I have to draw it, but that's okay. I'm going to use the pen tool, and I'm going to start, and then set a curve, and then I'm going to hold down Command, and grab that circle of the handle and pull it back. Then I'm going to set another curve by clicking and dragging. And then I'm going to hold down Command and grab that handle and set it back. And then I'm going to set another curve. And then hold Command, grab that handle, bring it back. And then I'm going to set another curve. And you can see the pattern here. And this is how you master the pen tool with Vectr. And then instead of going right to a straight, because then I'd have to modify it after, I'm going to go halfway. And actually just leave it as a straight. And then finish it off. And then double click it. Set its color. Get rid of the border, the stroke. And then I can set the curve on this and on this, kind of rounding it up. And if I want to change the curves a little bit, I can do that. I have full control with Command. Like that. And then this one, holding down Command. This is what I don't like. When you have a curve going into a curve, it gets really hard to control. So that's why I tend to like to only have the curves going on one side. Because little things like that really bug me in logo design. But if you actually look closely at logos, none of them are perfect. They all have these little issues, because vector design is messy this way. So if I want to plot a new point, actually I don't even need the pen tool. I keep making that mistake. I just need to double click on it, see the anchor points, and then I can plot a new one. And then that will give me new curves that I can play with Command. Just to even it out. And though good design is usually the fewest possible anchors, for this kind of subtlety of shape, sometimes you need more anchor points. And then you can always use that rounding tool. All right, that looks pretty good. Pretty clean. I have it coming to a point. Excuse me. So I could double click that, set it as two curves, and then adjust them individually, so that it comes to a softer point, if I like. Okay, so that will work for me for now. Now, my logo is nearly done. All I have to do is turn off my sketch layer and make sure there are no white shapes, that every path I'm using here that's turned on, I have some that are turned off, right? I can delete any that are turned off that I'm not using. And then this locked one is my sketch. I'm going to unlock it, and I'm going to set it at 100% opacity. And I do that, and then I can move it around to see if there are any white shapes. Ooh, and it doesn't look like I have any white shapes. Do you guys agree? Because it's just solid black, right? So now I'm just going to turn off that sketch. And now I know I have one complete vector, all with just black shapes. Now, I have to save it. So to save, you're going to click on Export, or it's Command S, right? First of all, you're going to save it as an SVG file, and then download it. It's going to go to download, and if you named it at the beginning of the project, it's going to keep that name. So I'm going to drag it from my downloads to my desktop. There it is. That is what's called a scalable vector graphic, an SVG file. You can open that up in Illustrator. And you will see all of its components, very similar to how you did it in Vectr.com. You'll see your sketch, even though you had it turned off, and you'll see all of your vectors. But SVGs are kind of weird. They remember the data of all those layers that you had turned off as well, all these little outlines. But they're all here. They're in different groups. It's a little complicated. So I'll clean it up here. Whoops. I'll clean it up here just by turning this off. What is going on with this? No. So SVGs are a very standard form of vector file, but they're actually not very useful because they kind of muddy data a lot and they can be misunderstood. Though when you download a vector from Pixabay, it downloads as an SVG. There we go. These are the things I need to delete. I just need to be able to select them. Okay, there we go. So now, in Illustrator, if you're doing it in Illustrator, you use the large selection tool at the top. You select it all, and then you move it onto the gray to make sure you don't have any white shapes. And lo and behold, there's something going on there. It's little remnants of strokes that were left on. All right, so now this is all clean. And in Illustrator, those of you saving it in Illustrator, once it looks good, once it's clean, once only the things turned on are necessary, I can delete other things. There shouldn't be any white. All right, now what I can do is I can say File, Save As, onto my computer, an EPS file. You can't save an EPS out of Vectr.com, but you're going to need an EPS to bring it into Photopea.
Save it as an EPS file, or you export it?
So it's in Illustrator, it's Save As. Okay. Yeah, there is no export for vector files, right? In this. Now, let's look at our desktop, see what we have. So we have our SVG, and now we should have our EPS. The EPS, I'm going to mark blue because that's going to be needed later. Let's go back to Vectr.com. There's another way we can save it, and we do it here instead of save, it's export, and that is as a vector file, a VECTR file, which is specialized just to this freeware. And then you can download that. What's nice about that is that will open up into Vectr.com with all the right layers turned on and off and all the settings. Whereas if you bring your SVG in, like it did in Illustrator, everything will be on at full. Then that comes into your downloads. So now I have 3 different vector files for this same black logo. So I'll mark this one gray. And then I'm going to mark my SVG, let's see, yellow. Okay. None of these are useful to us. None of these can go onto Canvas yet. But the EPS is blue. It's one of our campus colors, green and blue. So that EPS is what we're going to need. So what's next? Now we go into Photopea. And we're going to make this black shape vector print ready. So this is the only way it works, because we want the vector to stay a vector. So we need to bring it in as a smart object. So you start a new project in Photopea that is in inches for printing, and it's going to be 8 inches wide by 10 inches tall for everybody. And then you're going to name it your name, and then assignment 4. And then I'm going to call it my Day of Dead Nico Black logo. Shapes. All right, create. Oh, I messed up something. So if I go to image size, it not only needs to be 8 by 10 inches, it needs to be how many pixels per inch? 350 for our lab, 300 for standard minimum print resolution. So yeah, I'll do 350. All right, now I've got my piece of paper. I want you to think of this black shape around your canvas as your mat, right? And this white is your paper that you're going to print on. Now you take your EPS file, that blue file, you drag and drop it, and it will automatically center. It's one of the only ways to do layout. Now you can hold down Option, and you can decide how big you want it to be on that page. Now, because this is the black mat, I don't want it to be too close to one side or the other. I want to give it some nice space. And if I feel it needs to be moved over a little bit, it can. If I feel it needs to be moved up a little bit, I can. But this is to get a clean black shape. Now, if I zoom in, you're going to see pixels, but you're going to see pixels at 350 pixels per inch. The beauty is this is a smart object. So if I try to erase it, it will say it can't. It's protected unless I rasterize it. Do I ever want to rasterize it? No, because this is the vector I made. So the beauty of it is, just like the vector shape tools we use for exercise 2, we've now made kind of a custom vector shape that will scale up to any size and never lose quality. It's also how we're going to do our color version of our logo. So if I do Option Command T to transform it, I can resize it and it won't lose any quality at all. Now I might decide that I want this not to be on a vertical, though I always like to put it on verticals. So if that's the case, then I can change my canvas size from, always in inches, from 8 by 10 to 10 by 8. Right? And then I can place my vector on that orientation, which I haven't done this in a while, so I might as well demonstrate with this. So I'm going to pretend now it's a mat like this instead of like this. Right? So vectors are very easy to make print ready because we're already placing them within the 8 by 10. That's the inside of this size mat. That's an 8 by 10 window. Whew. All right. So now, if I want to fill that background with white, I can just click on the background, say Edit Fill with White. Yeah, I think I still like it on the vertical better, but as long as it's 8 by 10, it's fine. Now what do I do? Now I save that, right? So you save it as a PSD, Karl Assignment 4, Day of the Dead, Nico, black shaped logo to the desktop. And now we have 4 files, right? This is our PSD. Our PSD we always mark green because that's where we go to work on it. And that's where we're going to go next class to add color, drop shadows, effects, textures, gradients, whatever. All onto our vector without ever rasterizing it. Next, I got to get it into Canvas, so I'm going to say File, Export as a JPEG. You can either do it as a JPEG or you can do it as a PNG. And if you do it as a PNG, you might as well turn the background off. Doesn't matter, right? But I'll do it as a PNG here because that's how you would actually use the logo on a website, as a free floating black shape. So then that goes to downloads, and now I have a PNG, and I'm going to mark that as orange. And if I double click and open that just in preview, you're going to see how now it's floating on gray. And it's rasterized now, but since it's outputted from a vector, it's so cleanly rasterized that it's going to